Good evening. I am Tamika Glur, and I'm uploading this video for healthcare ethics. I believe the course number is PAC 415. I believe we're just pretty much focusing on what our positions are basically when it comes to multiple relationships and counseling or professional environment. And what I believe pretty much when it comes to multiple relationships and the professional counseling environment is the most important thing we probably need to focus on is understanding what the boundaries are and how those boundaries could affect services that we provide to those clients in that environment. Even though boundaries and guidelines need to be set in advance, some of those boundaries can still bring up ethical issues that are related to the services in counseling. Um, I work in child welfare, so a lot of times, what we need to do as social workers in a professional environment is pretty much evaluate each situation. Of course, I live in Phoenix, Arizona, so when it comes to engaging with multiple clients, it's probably going to happen. So I think as a professional, even in counseling, we should be allowing our clients to have like more options instead of jumping right into um, saying that they need to go to another professional or giving them those options. I think we should provide clients with more options and more services. Personally, I do feel like that when it comes to multiple relationships, it can actually harm both the professional and the client. Because a lot of times we just think, oh, well, we don't want multiple relationships because it's probably going to harm the client, but it could actually harm the professional as well. So, multiple relationships can become an issue after a while, even though the counselor goes over that role, their role as a professional, and most clients tend to cross those boundaries anyways when it comes to being comfortable with the counselor, and if the client maybe feels like they've built a rapport with the professional, it can be a very sensitive situation in most circumstances. But there are some ethical issues um, that do line up with counselors, and as far as counselors need to avoid, I should say. So when it comes to multiple relationships, clients, I feel like they're a little bit when they become vulnerable, when they become attached to that counselor. Um, Professionals probably should remember the importance when it comes to protecting those clients and avoiding maybe causing more harm to the situation. Say, for instance, if a counselor had a party in a smaller community and they allowed their guests to have a plus one. I've seen a situation where a counselor has invited a guest and they allowed the guest to come with a plus one, and that plus one ended up being a client of the counselor's. So in that situation, it could become an ethical issue. But as long as I think the counselor remains professional and make sure that they do not cross some of those boundaries at that event, because it's really easy for that to happen. Because in my defense, counselors are humans as well. So when they encounter situations like that, they have to deal with it, multiple relationships. So it may be hard for them to separate their role as a professional sometimes. So I think a lot of times we need to just basically keep that in mind because counselors, they're human. And it's hard to separate what their role is sometimes, especially working in smaller communities like me. In our department, we deal with a lot of Native Americans, so that little community is very small. So it's very easy for us to engage in multiple relationships as a social worker. So it will be the same as a counselor would. The counselor wears a lot of hats sometimes, so they have to engage with clients outside of their community, and the professional role requires multiple relationships at sometimes. So being a counselor and being a professional does have a huge impact on the client. So a lot of times it has the potential to exploit the client, and sometimes it can get out of hand. So it's kind of up to the client, the counselor, to be very careful, I'm sorry, when engaging with um, clients in the community. And a lot of people may consider um, having the relationships unethical, but I would say in that situation, it just gives the professional just an opportunity to kind of engage a little bit more with the client. So that is it for tonight. I thank you so much and have a good night.